Makunda Hill, a secluded African boarding school for girls, was nestled deep in the heart of a dense, ancient forest. The school was built over a century ago, a relic of colonial times. Its crumbling stone walls and dark corridors carried tales of the past, some whispered, others unspoken. The students at Makunda Hill were accustomed to the strange noises in the night, the wind howling through the trees, the creaking of old wood. But there was one place that no one dared to go after sunset, the abandoned East Wing. It was said to be haunted by the spirit of a girl who had died there many years ago. The legend was well known among the girls. The story went that Amina, a bright and kind student, had disappeared one night. Her body was found 3 days later in the East Wing, her face frozen in terror, eyes wide open as if she had seen something unspeakable. Since then, strange things had happened in the East Wing. Doors would slam shut on their own, cold winds would whip through the corridors, and at night, some swore they could hear faint whispers calling their names. One night, a new student named Zari arrived at Makunda Hill. She was brave, curious, and unafraid of the dark. The other girls warned her about the East Wing, but Zari laughed it off, dismissing the stories as mere ghost tales meant to scare the young and timid. "I'm not afraid of some old ghost story," Zari said, her voice full of confidence. "In fact, I'll prove it to you." The other girls gasped as Zari announced her plan to spend the night in the East Wing. She grabbed a flashlight and, with a mischievous smile, set off down the corridor leading to the forbidden part of the school. The air grew colder as Zari approached the East Wing. The once lively chatter of the other girls faded into silence as she crossed the threshold. The only sound was the soft crunch of her footsteps on the dusty floor. Zari's flashlight flickered, casting long, eerie shadows on the walls. She wandered through the darkened halls, her breath visible in the cold air. The stories had described how the walls themselves seemed to whisper, and now, Zari could hear it too, a faint, almost indistinct murmuring, like a voice carried on the wind. "Who's there?" Zari called out, her voice echoing through the empty corridor. There was no answer, only the intensifying whispers that seemed to be coming from all around her. As she ventured deeper into the East Wing, Zari's confidence began to waver. The walls seemed to close in on her, the shadows growing darker, more oppressive. She turned a corner and froze. In the beam of her flashlight, she saw it, a figure at the end of the hall, shrouded in darkness. It was a girl, her back turned to Zari, her head hanging low. Zari's heart raced, but she forced herself to approach. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. The girl did not respond. As Zari got closer, she noticed something odd: the girl's feet weren't touching the ground. She was floating just inches above the floor. Suddenly, the girl's head snapped around, revealing her face, Amina's face, twisted in a grotesque mask of fear and anger. Her eyes were hollow, empty voids that seemed to suck in the light. Zari stumbled back, dropping her flashlight. It rolled across the floor, casting wild shadows as it went. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, filling Zari's ears until it felt like they would burst. "Leave, now," the voices hissed in unison. Zari turned to run, but the corridor seemed to stretch on forever. The walls pulsed and shifted, the shadows reaching out for her. She could hear footsteps behind her, light and quick, but when she looked back, no one was there. The whispers followed her, growing more frantic, more angry. Finally, she burst through the doors of the East Wing and into the relative safety of the main building. The whispers ceased, and the oppressive cold lifted. The other girls were waiting for her, their faces pale with fear. "What happened?" one of them asked, but Zari couldn't speak. Her face was ashen, her eyes wide with terror. That night, Zari didn't sleep. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the image of Amina's face burned into her mind. The next morning, she packed her things and left Mukunda Hill without a word. The other girls never spoke of what happened that night, but they knew one thing for certain: the East Wing was not a place for the living. And the whispers? They continued, a constant reminder that some spirits never rest.